Good morning. This is Professor Wilmar Macías from Universidad Santo Tomás and Luis. He's full-time teacher in the first one and part-time teacher in the latter. He's in charge of different levels of general English program at USTA and comparative linguistics at WIS.
Okay, good morning. How can I help you today?
Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, which are the necessary elements to carry out an ideal English class for you?
Okay, the ideal English class, I guess it is necessary to have at least a good set of students willing to learn. That's number one asset. Then, I guess it require material. The minimum material is some material that they can use, in which they can write on. Something also to a set of speakers or an audio set, so you can provide input for listening, and a good space in which students can move around. So in that case, you're covering visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners needs.
Okay, thank you. Which are the advantages of a classroom occupied with technological resources and the disadvantages of the one with just a board?
Okay, well, in a classroom with advantages, with technological advantages, well, you can use different elements to provide real input to students. I mean, like non-abridged material. So you can download elements from internet, such as videos or audio sets, or you can immediately download and print a reading text. So it provides an endless number of possibilities for the classroom. So it's just a matter of creativity for you as a teacher to use.
Okay, thank you. Is it true that the best tools to develop an English class are found in private university instead of public ones?
Well, not true. In fact, I have taught at both, and you find the very same set of resources: a book, speakers, or a CD player, and once in a while, if you need it, a projector, a video projector. So that's all you can get here and there. So the difference basically is the classroom, the environment. Sometimes in here is more organized or cleaner, and you don't have those graffiti on the walls. But basically the same. What really makes the difference is not resources itself, but the students. What you can find different at private universities is that most of them have cutting-edge laboratories with the latest in technology, and they can provide a little bit more input to students, a little more activities, if you're smart and you know how to use them.
Okay, thank you. And do you think that the number of students influences on the effectiveness of learning a second language?
Yes, of course. Here, in fact, there is like a double line parallel. So the lower the amount of students, the better for the interaction with the teacher, but the larger, the better for the students in the sense that they can interact with other students. And if they have special needs, it's better, I would say, a smaller group. And if they are like a heterogeneous group, a homogeneous group in which pretty much they have the same level and they're willing to learn, a large class would benefit them.
Okay, thank you. Do you think that the class content described in the curriculum should be negotiated with the students?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Do you think that the class content described in the curriculum should be negotiated with the students?
Well, maybe what might be negotiated is the way you evaluate students. But the content itself, it's planned ahead thoroughly. So I don't think that it should be planned with them. It should be discussed with them.
Okay, thank you. According to your experience, what are the advantages and disadvantages of e-learning?
Well, the advantages is that if you use it properly, you can create like a third arm, an extension of the class. But it's quite complicated to create that discipline and that habit for us, at least in Latin America, is very complicated. If you don't use it right away from the very beginning and you don't make it a strong part of your class, they tend to forget about it and they don't like using it.
Okay, tell me which are the main differences between e-learning and face-to-face learning regarding students' motivation?
Well, the basic difference that you find with e-learning compared to face-to-face learning is that the interaction, the having a professor in front of them pushes them to move forward faster. E-learning requires lots of discipline. So if you're not a disciplined person or you're just in the way to become one, it's going to be harder. It's better if you have a professor there and you have a peer to interact directly. It's like as human beings, we're social beings, but we need that physical part in our learning process. I totally prefer face-to-face learning compared to e-learning. So I think that that e-learning is a complement of the class, but not a supplement of the class. So it's you need the face-to-face interaction, definitely, totally.
Okay, thank you. How many students should the ideal class have?
I guess that the ideal class should, well, it depends on the class you're teaching. But if we're talking about an English class, the ideal number of students should be between 8 to 16. I guess is the right number to provide enough chances for them to interact, to move around, and to have different partners to boost their learning. And also, it's not such a large group in which you cannot provide enough attention to each one of them.
Okay, thank you. Do you prefer working with big or small groups of students, and why?
Well, if we're talking about English, pure English classes, I guess it's something in between. Like, as I said before, between 8 and 16 is the perfect number. So it provides you enough time to move around, to check what they are doing, and to help them to answer their questions, and at the same time to check their results. Because if there is such a large group with 40 students, you do an exercise, you don't have time to see if everyone got it right or to make sure that they're really getting it. So I guess like something in between is better.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what are the benefits of teaching large classes?
Okay, I guess the benefits of teaching large classes is that first of all, you can learn not only about language itself, but also about learning strategies from other students in the class. So since you have a large group of peers, you can interact with them and you can receive lots of input. So I guess that's beneficial. Not only about learning the content itself, but about learning as a process.
Okay. What do you recommend when teaching large classes?
What do I recommend? To monitor students as much as possible. So that's one of the things that we as teachers have difficulty handling with when we have large groups. It's very difficult to move around the class. It's very complicated to check that everyone is doing what they're meant to do. But I guess that's what we should focus on because it's the complicated part.
Okay. Is it important to build good relationship with your students?
I guess it's very, very important because that motivates them to learn, and that is like an extra help for them. If they don't like the teacher, they won't like the class, and they would feel demotivated about learning that. So I think that the teacher as facilitator provides a great help. So it's very necessary.
Okay. What do you do to make a good impression in the first encounter with your students?
That's a complicated question. I don't know. I try to, well, the first thing I try to do always is to learn their names. So it's to me it's very important to know their names, to try to get an idea of their learning process, not just to know that I have class with X or Y group, but to know about them a little bit. It helps a lot because it gives you some help to identify their problems and their process and what they're weak and strong for. So I always try in my first class to learn their names, try to show them a little bit of what is going to be the class itself. So I try to, I don't know, try to make a couple of jokes to just to get people's attention and attention to the class.
Okay.
Discuss about what we have done. So every time I feel that the class is getting stuck, so I stop, make a reflection of what we have done, try to ask a couple of questions. So I make them aware again, because when you make questions to the class, the students don't want to be caught by a sudden question, So you stop the class and you start making questions at random, everyone gains attention again. So I guess that's a good technique to get their attention back.
Okay, thank you. Do you try to adapt your methodology according to your students' preferences and learning styles?
Definitely, because that's going to help them learn faster and they'll feel better. If you're not in an environment in which you're motivated and helped to learn, it's going to be very difficult. So I guess that including learning styles in the class is very, very important. So try to provide a little bit for at least every learning style, to try to move them around, to try to show graphics, to make to have different kind of presenters or of auditory input for them to concentrate to provide a little bit of everything.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever had to manage a class with a student with mixed abilities? It means with very different levels of proficiency?
I guess it happens all the time. You have to get used to it. You start working in an institute and they're apparently at B1 level, and you realize that most of them are A1, tops A2, 1 or 2, B2. They're not exactly in the level they are in. So yes, it's complicated. Sometimes it helps to group them, to mix them all the time, so they don't get used to a partner who does all the activities for them, or they get together just to have fun and not to work. So it's better to always try to mix them for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Do you worry about finding out your students' strengths and weaknesses?
Yes, definitely it's very, very important, because when you detect their weak points, you can help them because as a previous learner, you know how to deal with certain difficulties because you overcame those difficulties and now you're on top of the problem. So it's important to detect their weak points and to create a strategy for their games. Like, I guess that everything is about a strategy. Like, there is no such impossible difficulty, but that has no strategy to deal with. So there is always a way to.
Okay, and how do you identify their weaknesses and strengths?
Well, on day one, it's quite, in my opinion, it's impossible. Some people do like those introductory tests, those day one tests, and it works for them. I think that at the very beginning, what we can do is like to provide them with lots of with questions in which they have to provide output. It also depends on the group, because it's like a beginners group. You have to provide them with input to ask them a little bit. But when they are in a higher level, you can demand from them lots of things, basic things. So you can start measuring their abilities to comprehend questions, to read, to follow instructions, to write simple things, to pronounce, to be fluent. So that's where you start detecting their problems. So you make them interact with them and then check their interaction. So that's what I always try to do.
Okay. Okay, tell me, when you work with large classroom, how do you group students?
I try to group them at random, or to apply strategies like 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the group. But I always try to mix them up. because they tend to sit together. For example, a student who doesn't know with one that is very advanced, just to make him do his homework. So I always try to avoid those kind of things. So I try to mix them up all the time so they cannot always sit with the same people. Plus they interact with others, and that interaction helps them a lot.
Okay. Do you use students cell one in the classroom?
I try not to. I just do it once in a while with very lower levels, like beginners 1 or 2, because sometimes you give them instructions and you see they're looking around, they're totally lost. So when you need to clarify those instructions at the very beginning, you repeat them slowly, and then I tell them what it means. So they start associating one thing with instruction. So at the very beginning, day 1, I try to give them the basic instructions, like open your books on page, stand up, listen, write, read. So I try to do that. But sometimes instructions are more complex depending on the activity. So that's what I try to do. If necessary, last resource, L1. It's not a sin, but I try to avoid. I try to make them used to L2.
Okay. Do you think that using L1 benefits students' learning process?
Well, it doesn't. I don't think it benefits. What you're doing is that you're helping them to move forward because they're stuck. So it's not something that you do all the time. It's just for last resource purposes. It's like you have no other option. So let's do it. That's what I do. But I don't think it's going to boost their process or it's going to hinder their process. It's like one moment in which you use a technique to help them. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Macías.
You're welcome.